everyone, and welcome to today's D-Zone webinar with NeuBird AI, Agentic AI for DevOps Dynamic Playbooks from Live Telemetry. I'm Ken Underhill, and I'll be your host for today's session. As cloud environments become more dynamic, static runbooks often fall short when teams are dealing with fast-moving incidents, alert storms, and unclear root causes. Today's session will explore how Agentic AI can turn live telemetry into real-time investigative playbooks that help SRE and DevOps teams respond with more context, speed, and confidence. Now, before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded, and we'll send the on-demand recording after the event. Also, if you have any questions at all during the presentation, please submit those using the Q&A panel, and we'll try to address as many as possible during the Q&A portion at the end. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker. Madhav Shah is a founding engineer at NeuBird, where he focuses on bringing NeuBird's agentic AI capabilities into complex, real-world customer environments. Over the past 8 years, he's helped build and scale multiple enterprise SaaS startups with experience spanning data protection, AI-driven DevOps, and reliability engineering. He's passionate about solving difficult operational challenges from first principles and building solutions that feel intuitive for the teams who rely on them every day. So, Madhav, thanks for joining us today, and I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the intro, Ken. Hello, everyone. Glad that you could join us today. As Ken said, my name is Madhav. I've been working over at NeuBird for the past 2 years or so, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about dynamic playbooks and how that's going to revolutionize the DevOps world. So for those of you that had attended our last session, we did a general overview of the benefits of agentic SREs. There's alert storms everywhere, and we need better ways to use AI and use LLMs to navigate through this alert volume and get better RCAs and understandings of our environment. This session, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into evolving environments. So what happens when your production environments are constantly going through changes, whether it's in the infrastructure, the code path, etc., and making sure that you can debug any sort of situation that goes on and maintain a understanding of your environment that doesn't need to be updated manually. So I'll be mainly talking about skills and what they are, how they integrate with our dynamic playbooks and the rest of our product. And I'll kind of give an overview of what we're doing to redefine skills within the NeuBird environment, and then how it works with our investigation process and our service maps. So I want to start off with just describing something which we've called an agent. And this is essentially your persona, what kind of role that you want to work with, or that describes the kind of information that you want to get. Now, we've defined 2 basic ones for any user that comes into our environment. And we have a quick, reliable, easy answer option in Peacock and a more in-depth option in Falcon. And these kind of offer the basic types of features that you'll see in something like Claude Haiku versus Claude Opus, where we're giving you either deep investigation or we're skimming the surface and giving you information quickly so that you can iterate on it and continue to delve deeper. However, these base models are just infrastructure for you to also provide your own agents. And something that we've seen a lot of customers do with great success is define roles that specify whether they're a DB admin, an SRE, a developer, that will allow them to scope the available skills and playbooks that are within their system so that they can properly conduct investigations that give information that they truly care about. So if you're a developer and you're just trying to find bugs in the system, then you won't be given noise about infrastructure issues or something that's going on with an outage. Similarly, if you're an SRE that's trying to dive deep into a problem, some small buggy issues that aren't really impacting your customer base aren't going to keep adding noise to your overall investigation. But the real meat of these dynamic playbooks rely within skills. And these skills are going to guide how our agent investigates. Now, these skills are going to be used in a variety of ways. And we've defined skills so that they'll be able to help conduct your investigations and determine what next steps you're going to take based on the initial prompt or alert you're looking at, guide your summarization and the final result that you get so that it shows information in a manner that is helpful to you, or shows information that is going to more accurately solve the problem for your environment. And then a variety of other smaller skills that work within the realm of our environment. So, for example, we will often ingest your alerts to make sure that we're rapidly answering anything that's occurring right now in your environment. And you can use skills to filter this volume down to only the most important alerts, or make sure that you're only automatically investigating the most critical alerts that you need immediate RCAs on. So these skills, when they're defined, plug into our overall platform layer. And they're not something, for those of you who are familiar, where we're just importing OpenClaw or using the same models within our LLM layer. Our entire skills layer is going to sit on top of our agent context platform. Now, you can see at the top, we have our interface that we're going to be interacting with all of our clients. And at the bottom, we have all of the integrations to our customer data, our live telemetry that is going to guide our dynamic playbooks. But at the middle layer, which is the meat of what we're able to do to help solve these kinds of issues and really bring dynamic playbooks into the world of RCAs, is the skill layer on top over here, where we're going to be defining the kinds of skills that we need to build our playbooks. And then this agent context engine over here, which will smartly take the integration information here, apply various layers of reasoning and enrichment to that information, and then give that information to our LLM engine Falcon over here for it to bounce back and forth between the skills that are available and the context that can be provided. The context layers over here will allow us to do skill selection, as well as look at the various tools that we have available in your existing environment, and also integrate the enterprise knowledge that we've collected to help build these dynamic playbooks in as accurate of a way as we can. Now, skills are very important, but right now, all of you guys probably have runbooks already that you want to make sure are not thrown away or redone just for the sake of integrating into a new product. So we want to make sure that any sort of static or older runbooks that you have can be converted into these dynamic playbooks. So the first step of setting up this dynamic playbook and these skills is to import your existing playbooks into skills. We separate them into sections on what your skill does, when it should be used, and then use AI to validate that this gives information that is not both accurate, but also useful for our internal pipelining, to make sure that once this runbook is uploaded, it is immediately useful in the investigations that you're going to be running. In addition, we're providing our own Falcon Claw open source enterprise-grade skills hub, where we have put in an initial set of skills that we have found extremely helpful for any wide range of enterprise issues that our customers have run into, but also have had customers start uploading their own skills that they found incredibly useful as well. These skills go through security review, so no worries about different issues that have occurred with OpenClaw or related skills hubs where malicious attackers are able to provide skills that actually extract information that it shouldn't have access to. And they also go through validation to make sure that they work cleanly with our investigation experience. Please feel free, by the way, to go ahead and take a look at falconclaw.neubird.ai or scan this QR code to make sure that you can see some of the skills that we're providing. Now, the skill lifecycle overall is going to start with your runbooks, and then it's going to go through the skill library through something like Falcon Claw or even OpenClaw if you have skills that you trust to integrate into your product and your environment. But the last main step of making sure that these skills are able to produce dynamic playbooks is that skills will also be investigation generated and updated. This is what makes sure that even after you've put in your runbooks and you've set up your environment with your skills, we're staying dynamic with your environment so that ongoing changes are also constantly changing your skills to make sure that they're the most up to date and giving the most fast and accurate RCAs that are possible. Now, we have the context layer that I referred to earlier with ACE, and this context layer is integral to using the skills that are provided and building these dynamic playbooks. Now, to give a little context to what ACE does, ACE is doing dynamic context assembly. Now, this means that all of your integrations that you've added access to for our product are retrievable and giving us active real-time data. And we're able to take this data during our investigations and then mutate the skills or the selection of skills process that we have such that we're providing the best skills related to the investigation that is ongoing. And as the investigation continues to iterate, we will continue to iterate to retrieve more data and retrieve the best skills that are most usable in the next steps. Not only is this used within this loop, but the section that I referred to earlier on when skills should be used is critical to make sure that this loop is working as effectively as it can. Generally, skills will often just refer to the LLM to try and be used as often as possible, but we want to give kind of the most intelligence and the most control that we can to our SRE users so that they can take the small little nits and quirks about their product and add it to the skills that we're uploading to our system so that it is well integrated within the loop that we have with our context layer. Now, this provides two key assets: context-aware matching and adaptive reasoning. Now, context-aware matching is making sure that if you're asking a question about a Kubernetes environment, that all the skills that may be related to your alert, for example, a high memory issue, are not automatically being applied because it knows that it's within a Kubernetes environment. And this is something that may not be obvious when an alert is first picked up. But once we start the investigation process and we're able to scope in the environment that we're currently living at, we're able to more accurately narrow down the list of skills that are being used. And adaptive reasoning, making sure that when we find something within our investigation process that helps us narrow down the scope of the problem or helps us find the blast radius of what might have occurred, we're able to use that information, go down a different path of questioning, and then use a skill that is maybe more matched to a specific lane of thought. So for example, if there was a high memory issue and we've been able to match it instead to a high volume of messages being uploaded to a queue, then instead of just generically drilling down on these high memory skills and going down paths which may not really be as useful, we're able to immediately pivot to take a look at issues that maybe are more integrated with queue workload and high loads that you may have to deal with. Now, I just want to take you guys through what this looks like in a real-life incident. Now, let's say that there is a Datadog monitor that's triggered. What our system will do is it will automatically pick that monitor up and it will kick off an investigation. Now, in this investigation, what's happened is we've taken this monitor and we've tied it to an AWS alert that then created this monitor. As such, we've picked up a skill that's first to check if our AWS status is completely online, and then look for CloudWatch alerts in the last hour. This will allow us to look for any history of this alert firing recently and the pattern that is currently occurring. And we'll then call this tool to list the incidents within your environment and see what information we can gather to further progress our investigation. This is also kind of visible on this side of our chain of thought and looking at our evidence gathering and then going further down the incident summary of what we've seen in the past and how we continue to use that information to eventually reach a root cause or an RCA. This whole loop is exactly where all these skills become useful, as we'll be able to see various skills being applied at each of these steps so that we can be as accurate as possible and continuously change the skill set that we're using in our investigation process. In addition to the investigation skills, as I mentioned before, we also have summary skills. And these summary skills are incredibly useful to make sure that you are getting the information out of the investigation that you need. For example, if it's a critical alert like this one, then immediately we're going to show you the remediation plan that you need to execute on so that once the root cause is found, you are able to immediately fix the issue and then take a look at longer term solutions. And this is all possible based on the skill that we had added over here for a senior SRE that is recommending corrective actions and remediations that must be within a specific set of safety tiers. All of that information is then translated into a fully actionable plan that is given to you within minutes. Just wanted to go through how a skill adapts mid-investigation. So I'll start from the beginning. When an alert fires, we are going to see a crash loop backoff, for example, that is causing our pods to be in a continuous restart loop. Our skills will look at that and find which logs that we want to query. This is kind of a little bit more similar to the playbooks that we know and love. And when it finds these kind of logs that might refer to an upstream traffic router that's causing issues with new routing rules, or let's say a queue that is getting overfilled, that's when we will adapt and find new skills that are going to be more relevant to this area. And these skill updates are not only going to be for just this singular run, we will then suggest new skill updates or new skill additions that are going to be integrated into your playbook so that the next time an issue like this happens, these new skills will be automatically available to your investigation train of thought and execute these findings much more efficiently. This kind of hammered down on the point that in a world where a lot of incidents are high risk and not always following the most expectant patterns that maybe your runbook covers 80% of, quick resolution is going to save time and money and headaches for everyone. And making sure that your skills are constantly adapting and those skills are creating dynamic playbooks and the dynamic environment that creates in your debugging process is critical to maintaining an effective environment. Now, the other area where we're able to more dynamically look at your environment are service maps. So many of you may have used service maps in the past with Datadog, with Dynatrace, and these service maps do a good job at giving you a look at your environment and a high-level overview of what's going on. So we have an example service map over here. We have some Kubernetes namespaces, some AWS environments, and you'll see here that we have a yellow box over here that'll indicate that there's maybe something that should be investigated within this area. Now, this is our system of making sure that any incidents, alerts, or questions that you've asked in the past are always correlated to your image and our image of what exists within your environment. So that we can make sure that anytime that there is a change in your environment or something is now talking to a different service or a new service is added, we're always integrating that into our ever-evolving view that is used in your debugging investigations. So for example here, if you click on one of these nodes, you're able to kind of see the alerts that are tied to this area and the relative blast radius of where that alert might be expanding towards and other services that are tightly connected that might feel some of the effects of what's going on with this alert. You can also drill down and take a look at internal root level nodes that might give you a bigger picture of, for example, in this case, a node that is seriously affected that is then causing all of these different services that are deployed to not function properly. And you'll see this in a visual format that's obviously easier for you to tell where a problem is extending to and where a problem originated from. But also, it gives a lot of context to our investigations and our skills to be able to easily put down skills that say, take a look at all connected services that are affected by this current alert and search for logs that are indicating that we are undergoing high volume. These immediately give us a way to validate any RCAs that we found and ensure that we're not hallucinating on a hypothesis that we found for one specific node, but are then able to match it to other nodes and ensure that we're giving an accurate response. So alerts, when they come in, are feeding the service map. The service map is then going to feed the skills. Anytime that an alert fires, let's say in the checkout service, we're going to group these alerts and then also find where else similar alerts have affected the service map. So not only are we getting correlation on what is happening right now, but we're getting historical correlation as well on what has happened previously in your system. And let's say there's been a change in your system where the inventory sync was a new process that came in a week ago, then we'll be able to tell that there were processes that were failing longer than a week ago, and those same processes are failing now, but in a different area. And an investigation that had worked a month ago on a complex issue that took multiple rounds now doesn't need to be reinvestigated because we've realized that the flow of your information has moved to a separate service now, and that same flow had experienced an issue before. This type of historical analysis usually isn't possible in telemetry services that are giving you only the service map or only your alert context, or are unable to integrate completely with your native hosting environments. And once all of this is done, we're able to update the skills and say that the latency that you're experiencing in the commerce namespace also was what we're seeing in the checkout namespace, and it was related to the inventory sync. So now whenever something comes up in those areas, do a holistic investigation that looks at all those services and what they've experienced in the past. It's clear to see, when we're looking at all of the various architecture changes that come in, the new services, the past incidents that have occurred in different areas than what's occurring right now, static runbooks just can't keep up. And hopefully you guys should see a poll on this, and you guys can chime in and let us know what's happening with static runbooks for you guys. And have you guys been able to see issues in static runbooks, or are you guys able to update them very frequently? Hopefully, though, that is a problem of the past. With dynamic skills and service maps and alert contexts and integrating with LLMs, we're able to always generate new playbooks that are going to be incident specific, that are going to take into context your architectural changes. It'll look at your service history, your incident history, any previous investigation, the skills that have been added, and create an environment where you simply have to manage the overall configuration of your product and not really get into the nitty-gritty manual labor that is often involved with debugging and investigating an alert. And a lot of this management that you're doing in these flows will eventually also be automated with our workflows. And I don't want to give away too much or kind of delve too deeply in an entirely new topic, but I will tell you guys that we'll be coming back with another talk on workflows and how you can start automating a lot of these more manual steps in updating your skills and running investigations and bringing up dashboards for important information within your environment. So let me go ahead and show you guys a little bit of a demo on how our product works. So I'm going to go ahead and go into our live environment. So here is some of the projects that we have, and we'll start on the configuration side. So if we go to the settings over here, you'll kind of see the agents that we default provide for you. We'll go ahead and select Falcon over here. Maybe we want something that's going to be a little bit more involved for our investigations. And we'll go back to our projects. And we'll go into variation 1. And let's take a look at some of these skills. We have our EKS cluster GitHub repos. on our specific setup that we have over here, there is a GitHub repo associated with all of our services. So this makes sure that when we're debugging different code issues, the investigation is constrained only to the repo based on the EKS cluster and the service that it has found to have the issue. A lot of times we were seeing random repositories being investigated, and at best it would slow down your investigation with all the extra information it's trying to consume. At worst, it would pull up a lot of false flags on bugs that aren't relevant or wouldn't be able to affect the specific problem that you're seeing because it's not even related to the service that you're using. We have our Kubernetes investigations, making sure that when a problem is coming up within a specific namespace, we're drilling down on only that namespace and not worried about all the noise happening within various other namespaces or the Kubernetes system. And then we have a summary skill that'll be looking at suggested skill updates. And this will kind of provide the dynamism that we want to automatically update your skills whenever there are new paths that are found. Now, going over to the service map area, we'll kind of see an environment over here where you're able to see that we have some critical nodes. We have some maybe lower severity issues to look into, and the rest of our healthy states. You'll be able to kind of filter down on any of these issues and see, for example, a lot of the high alerts that we have. Take a look at the low alerts. And for example, one of these was showing, 10 minutes ago, a new one has just come in. We're constantly updating this to match the current state of your environment. And if you need to take a look at what's happening underneath, you can always take a look at the lower level, kind of more complex view of what's happening within your map, where the actual issues are happening, and take a look at your overall environment. Anyways, if we now go into our investigation flow, and we see that we've had quite a few number of incidents. We've had PagerDuty incidents that are coming in that we want to now correlate to our AWS environment. We'll go ahead and kick off an investigation on one of these. And now we'll kind of see the dynamic playbook at work. So right here, immediately, you're seeing the skills that we're retrieving. What skills do we have? How can we apply them? And now we're starting to apply them into our runbook. And this is creating the playbook on demand. This is purely relevant to this investigation. It is running the queries to get the information that we need. And then once we've got that information, if necessary, we will go ahead and continue to iterate, retrieve more skills, find out more follow-up questions that we may need to ask to get to the root cause of this investigation. And then we'll continue to show our final root cause analysis. And that will include this kind of summary skill set. Now, as an aside, I do kind of want to give a cautionary update that Anthropic has just now, over the past hour, hit some downtime on some of its models. So that's kind of life with a lot of these dependencies as we see it. The reason that we're still able to kind of run these queries with some good accuracy is because of our internal fallbacks that we have with different models and different providers. But for the skills, I'll be kind of showing an example of what you might see when the summary is returned, just in case this Anthropic breakage is giving us a slightly different experience than what you'd usually expect from our product. So right here, you'll kind of see key findings. Pod restarts here were detected in the HTM bubbles namespace. Awesome. So now that we've found that, we're able to describe the issue. We're going in for another loop. We're saving our learnings, making sure that those are updated in future skills, whether they're the external skills that are available for the customer to mutate, or our own internal skills that are going to be needed. Again, here we're seeing another skill call, making sure that we are taking the information that we've just found, applying the skills that we're able to use that are more specific to this. And now we've finally reached our summary. So here you'll kind of see the pod restarts. You'll see the incident summary and the pattern that we're seeing. Okay, it's not a one-off event. And there's a weekly cadence. Awesome. We've been able to integrate the historical context to this event. We're seeing that it occurs often, and it's always going to be the same pod. The root cause shows that there's a scheduled process. This is our test environment, so that does kind of work with the reason that we have these skills updates occurs. Our noise assessment, all of these kind of parts of the investigation that we want to make sure that we add for this specific template that we've added. The remediation plan, now we can go in, maybe check what times the restarts are happening, look for the cron jobs, and then finally take a look at how we can turn them off or change the duration of these cron jobs. And perfect, we have our suggested skill updates here. You can see here that we want to update this skill. We'll go ahead and be able to copy that, and we want to create a new skill over here. So if we want to update the new skill, we can go into our skills section here. We'll be able to create that skill over here and put in the name. I had forgotten to copy over the actual context, but for the sake of the demo, we'll be able to kind of show that you can validate this, make sure that it's made a little bit more LM friendly, and then go ahead and add it to your session. You'll also kind of see the alert context for everything that's happened here. And you'll see kind of the final summary. And if you need to look at the overall runbook itself, that'll kind of be over here. And you can see the more of the details of what we've done within your runbook and how this can affect future skills that you may want to add. Yeah, so that is kind of the life of an incident, the dynamic runbooks that we have. I'll go ahead and kind of also show, this is Falcon Claw. So this is where you're able to take a look at some of the newer skills, the different cloud architect, for example, roles that you might have to integrate into the summaries that you want to generate, whether you want, chaos experiments that will end up helping you test these flows internally so that you don't run into these issues again. Do you want to create the fix for this issue? Kind of the more like high level ones, and then you can kind of drill in as you need and take these skills. You can upload them. If we go back to our live environment, anytime that you want to upload a skill, you'll just go into your project. You will edit your skills section, and whenever you add a skill, you'll be able to upload a file. So I have this Kubernetes skill over here. We'll kind of dump the context over here. There will be some parts that are automatically copied. Again, sorry for the cloud outage, but we'll be able to validate this with AI, and then we'll be able to save this and create our new skill. And yeah, hope that you guys were kind of able to see what we're able to do with our dynamic playbooks. The takeaways from all of this: who is going to be doing and coordinating these types of dynamic playbooks? The agents that you select. You can configure them in lieu of the kind of coworker that you wish you had, or the helper that you wish you had, and make sure that they have the types of skills or the types of initial runbooks to be able to take a first crack at these investigations. And how they're going to go and build these dynamic playbooks are going to be with skills. You'll start with initial sets of skills. They'll automatically be updated as our playbooks and our further alert incidents come into play. And when we build new information from how your environment works, how the architecture is configured, and how we can enhance the current skills that are in play. Why it'll be done is because currently there's so much context that we need to be able to build on. ACE is providing us all of this context from your live telemetry, from incidents, from web searches, all of these different tools that are available to us. We need to be able to have dynamic playbooks that can navigate the sea of skills and the sea of context Otherwise, static playbooks will often fall on its face or not be able to utilize all the information that's available. And what this will be running on is the service maps that I've showed you, is the alert context that we've tied into that, and making sure that we are managing your environment. We're giving you the best possible picture of what your environment currently looks like, what your current alerts and incidents are, and what the issues are, and how to fix those. And when should you apply this? Right now. It is honestly no longer possible with the world of different tools evolving, LLMs coming into play, the various more aggressive issues that we're seeing with different breakages in code or infra systems, to deal with all of this manually. And it wastes hours. And Gartner has even estimated that by 2030, 80% of all incidents are going to be fully automated. And what we don't want to do is just throw this into some generic LLM or some default tool that has been provided, which is not going to be able to integrate your configuration data, your alert data, your telemetry with proper runbook usage and dynamic playbook creation, because then we're just going to see kind of the continuous shortcomings that we find in LLM models when we try to apply it to real-time information when there's no human to help guide it. And we want to provide that kind of dynamism so that the first look that these agents take is going to be unbelievably more accurate than what your base expectation is, so that you can manage these without stress, with quick responses, and with accurate RCAs. So thank you guys for coming here, for listening to this breakdown of dynamic playbooks. You can go ahead and go to this link or this QR code to get some more information about our product, about dynamic playbooks, about how to get integrated with us. The environment that I kind of showed in our demo gets set up within 5 minutes. It's incredibly easy to try out. So I hope to see you guys there. And yeah, Ken, I think let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A.
Yeah, well, thanks, Madav. That was a really useful look at how NeuBird can help teams move beyond just those static runbooks and towards more adaptive, telemetry-driven incident investigation. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion, as Madav said. And as a reminder, you can submit any questions you have using the Q&A panel. And we do have a few questions. So, Madav, I just want to jump right into those. The first question is, I've seen skills and MCPs provide similar tooling to what you had discussed here. So why not use these strategies with more basic available tools to build our own flows?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because honestly, that is what we were internally doing when these kind of skills and MCPs had just come out, when we were debugging our own native issues. And it worked for a little bit. We were usually trying it on the more simpler issues. But then kind of over time, we noticed that we were really missing that historical, not only context, but enrichment. And that enrichment part is key. When you look at our service map and the alerts and how we're tying these together, it's not just a simple matching process. We're able to take the resolutions that we've reached for these alerts and tie them to a history of service maps and enrich that connection so that when we're using our MCPs and our tools that might be available commonly, those are able to access enriched information on these alerts and these service maps that it otherwise would not have access to in live data. So that kind of base of enriched data that we're able to provide, our kind of context engine that both uses the live telemetry information so that we're not just training on all of your data, but also trains on enough so that we can help you out in your investigation and understanding process, is critical to really unlocking that last 10 to 20% that you need for accuracy on investigations to get a useful agentic tool with your automated incident resolution. Otherwise, you'll be able to solve the easy problems, but as soon as something a little bit more complex or related to your past issues comes in that you had to manually go through the last time you solved it, and now someone else is looking at the problem, they're going to be faced with similar struggles. So we've really seen that there is kind of a space for a product to come into play here and give a more mature solution.
So the next question is, as more skills get added into our environments, there's that risk of mistaken skill selection that will likely increase. So the question is, how do we deal with investigations that start going down the wrong path and where we're getting those useless answers?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, this is just kind of a fact of how LLMs work. There's going to be times where even with our enhanced skill matching, right, even with the ability to more accurately condition on when the skill should be used and use data not only from live telemetry, but also from our investigation process and the partial resolutions that we found to more accurately guide skills, it can still go down a bad path. And when it goes down a bad path, what we've been able to do is have our own logic on when we're, death spiraling into one specific resolution, and have skills that are used internally already set up for the customers that will try to validate the information that we're getting back. And as soon as we're kind of seeing that we're going down a path where the validation that we're getting from the skills is not matching on other areas where we've seen this alert, or we're unable to find anything that links to the kind of train of thought that we're going down, we'll open up back to the generic set of skills and a generic problem to kind of widen our scope and then reinvestigate the overall scope of the problem and exclude the kind of path that we went down earlier. So this kind of, again, points to why it's important to have these dynamic skills, because one, it kind of reduces the chance of you landing in that issue. But even if you do land in that issue, then we're able to step out of it and use that information to even more dynamically select skills for our second pass so that we can avoid that same iteration over and over again. Really, this kind of infrastructure of being able to select skills based on live time information and lifetime root cause analysis for partial problems is critical for solving a complex incident.
Manav, earlier you mentioned Datadog, and so we actually have another question in the chat. Datadog and many other services, they already offer service maps. So the question is, how does this differ from what's already available out there in the market and queryable? So how does this differ from those?
Yeah, I mean, Datadog service maps are great, and part of the information there is how we're able to construct our service maps. So there's no fear of losing any of the context that Datadog or Dynatrace is giving you. The issue is that Datadog is two things. One is going to be constrained to whatever it has. So the information that you're getting is not going to include your maybe all of your AWS configuration that Datadog hasn't ingested. And that is going to be critical to figuring out, for example, configuration changes that have happened in an environment that is not sending logs or metrics. Or you're going to have, for example, alerts that are being fed in that are coming in from PagerDuty instead of Datadog. And these alerts are going to need to be tied in with information that's not available in Datadog. And these enhanced service maps gives you a much better holistic view of your environment that doesn't tie you down to one provider. And whether it's Datadog or Dynatrace or any of these solutions, oftentimes you're going to be paying extra to keep your knowledge and your information in these areas and then build on top of it. At the end of the day, that turns into an inefficient way to really coordinate your data and coordinate your cost. Overall, you can just keep your raw environments where you're running all of your, your compute, your storage, if it's AWS, if it's Azure, and integrate that with our products so that we can build your service maps automatically for you, take in all the context instead of just what's available to Datadog, and then most importantly, have that enrichment process that I talked about that is going to be absolutely critical to make sure that you're able to investigate these complex incidents with small little hints from previous configuration and architectural changes or somewhat similar incidents. That level of context enrichment with the rest of your alerts and your service map integration is something that we've seen Datadog fall a little bit short on. And that's part of why we thought it was so integral to incorporate that into our product and make sure that we're able to show that to our customers and make it available for our LLM tool.
I love what you said there about context enrichment, because that's so critical during an incident to actually be able to respond effectively. I know we're coming up on time, so if we didn't get to your question during the session, the NeuBird team will follow up and make sure they get that answered for you. Thanks again, Madhav, for walking us through how agentic AI can transform incident response by turning live telemetry into dynamic investigative playbooks. Before we wrap up, I did want to hand it back to you just so you can share how attendees can continue the conversation and learn more.
Perfect. Yeah, so please feel free to go ahead and go to this link, neubird.ai/resources/AWS. That'll kind of get you kicked off on some of the resources for AWS that we have available, as well as all of our other integrations. We have the QR code here if that's easier. You can reach out to me at the email right here, madhav@neubird.ai. And we have our site, neubird.ai, not to be confused with the recent Allbirds rebrand. NeuBird.ai will be able to kind of direct you to any of our support, and you can reach out to us. We're always happy to help. It'll be very easy to get a demo set up, to get a POC set up. The integrations usually take 5 to 10 minutes, and you can kind of directly start seeing how dynamic playbooks can change your incident styles. Yeah, come reach out to us. We've had a ton of customers that have been happy within minutes, so would love to help you guys out and see what you're able to do with these new tools.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Madhav, for sharing today. Great session. And thanks to everyone that joined us today. Keep an eye out in your inbox for the on-demand recording after the event. And we hope to see you at a future DZone webinar.